The afternoon sun was hot as Officer Derek Matthews sat in his police car. He was parked on Oak Street, one of the nicest areas in the city. Big houses lined both sides of the road. Each house had a perfect lawn and expensive cars in the driveway. This was not the kind of place where Derek usually saw trouble. But today, something caught his eye. An old car was driving very slowly down the street. The car was a dark blue sedan that had seen better days. The paint was faded and there were small dents on the sides. It moved at barely 20 miles per hour, much slower than the other cars on the road. Derek watched as the car stopped at every stop sign for a long time. The driver seemed to be looking around as if he was lost. Derek felt his jaw tighten. He had been a police officer for 12 years, and he knew when something was not right. In his mind, old cars like that one did not belong in neighborhoods like this. The people who lived here drove new BMWs and Mercedes. They did not drive beat-up sedans that looked like they should be in a junkyard. The car turned left onto Maple Avenue, moving even slower now. Derek started his engine and began to follow. He stayed back a little, watching the car's every move. The driver was clearly an older person, based on how carefully he was driving. Derek could see the silhouette of someone with gray hair behind the wheel. As Derek followed the car, his radio crackled with reports from other officers. There had been some break-ins in this area over the past few weeks. Someone had been going into backyards and stealing things from porches. Derek was sure this old car was connected to those crimes somehow. Why else would someone be driving so slowly through this expensive neighborhood? The car stopped at a red light and Derek pulled up behind it. He could see the driver more clearly now. It was an elderly black man, probably in his 70s. The man's hands were on the steering wheel and he was looking straight ahead. Derek felt even more suspicious. In his 12 years as a cop, he had learned to trust his gut feelings. And right now his gut was telling him that this man was up to no good. When the light turned green, the old car continued down the street. But instead of leaving the neighborhood, it turned into another residential area. This made Derek even more sure that something was wrong. Local people knew where they were going. They did not drive around slowly looking at houses. Only people who were planning something bad did that. Derek decided he had seen enough. He turned on his flashing lights and hit the siren once. The sound echoed between the big houses. In his rearview mirror, Derek could see a few people come out of their houses to see what was happening. Good, he thought. Let them see that the police were keeping their neighborhood safe. The old sedan pulled over to the side of the road right away. Derek noticed that the driver did not try to run or act nervous. Most guilty people would have tried to speed away or at least acted scared. But this old man just pulled over calmly and turned off his engine. Derek found this strange, but he was still sure the man was doing something wrong. Derek parked his police car behind the sedan and got out. He put on his dark sunglasses and adjusted his uniform. He wanted to look official and serious. As he walked toward the car, he could see the driver's face in the side mirror. The man looked tired and a little confused, but not scared. Derek thought this was just an act. Criminals were good at pretending to be innocent. The driver's window was already rolled down when Derek reached the car. The old man inside had dark skin that showed his age, with deep lines around his eyes and mouth. His gray hair was cut short and neat. He was wearing a simple white shirt that looked clean but old. Derek could smell a faint scent of aftershave coming from the car. "Good afternoon, officer," the old man said in a quiet voice. His words were clear and polite. "Is there a problem?" Derek looked down at the man with a cold expression. He did not like the way the man was acting so calm and polite. In Derek's experience, people who acted too nice were usually hiding something. "License and registration," Derek said in a sharp voice. He did not say please or explain why he had stopped the car. The old man nodded slowly. "Of course," he said. Derek watched as the man reached toward the glove compartment. His movements were slow and careful, like someone who was much older than he looked. Derek put his hand on his gun just in case. You could never be too careful, especially in situations like this. "Slow down there," Derek said in a harsh voice. "Keep your hands where I can see them." The old man stopped moving and looked up at Derek with surprise in his eyes. "I was just getting my registration, officer. It's in the glove compartment." "I'll tell you when you can move," Derek snapped. He was starting to enjoy the feeling of power this gave him. "Put both hands on the steering wheel first." The old man did as he was told. Derek could see that his hands were shaking slightly. This made Derek feel more confident that he had caught someone doing something wrong. Innocent people did not shake when they talked to police officers. Now, Derek continued, tell me what you're doing in this neighborhood. The old man looked confused by the question. I'm sorry, officer. I don't understand. Am I not allowed to drive here? Derek felt his anger rising. He did not like it when people questioned him or acted like they did not know what they had done wrong. Don't play games with me, old man. I saw you driving around slowly, looking at all these houses. We've had break-ins in this area, so I'll ask you again, what are you doing here? The old man's face showed hurt and confusion. Officer, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just trying to find an address. I have an appointment this afternoon and I got a little lost. Derek laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. An appointment? In this neighborhood? What kind of appointment would someone like you have around here? The way Derek said someone like you made his meaning very clear. The old man's face changed and Derek could see that he understood the insult. But instead of getting angry, the man just looked sad. I can show you the address if you'd like, the old man said quietly. It's for something very important to me. Derek was not interested in hearing more lies. Just get your license and registration, and move slowly. As the old man reached for his wallet, Derek began to plan what he would do next. He was sure this man was guilty of something, and he was going to make sure everyone in the neighborhood knew that the police were doing their job. The old man's hands shook as he reached for his wallet. Derek watched every movement with sharp eyes, ready to react if the man tried anything suspicious. The wallet was old and worn, made of brown leather that had seen many years of use. As the man opened it, Derek could see that it was full of cards and papers all organized neatly. Here's my license, the old man said, pulling out a small plastic card. His voice was still polite, but Derek could hear a slight tremor in it now. The man was finally showing some fear, which made Derek feel more in control. Derek snatched the license from the man's fingers without saying, thank you. He looked at the name Samuel Washington. The address was from the other side of town, in a much poorer neighborhood. Derek had been right, this man did not belong here. Samuel Washington. Derek read the name out loud in a mocking tone. Age 78. So tell me, Samuel, what brings you so far from home? This neighborhood is a long way from where you live. Samuel looked up at Derek with patient eyes. Like I said, officer, I have an appointment. I got a little confused about the direction, so I was driving slowly to make sure I didn't miss the turn. Derek laughed again, the same cold laugh as before. An appointment? Right. And I suppose you just happened to pick the most expensive neighborhood in the city to get lost in? Officer, I can explain if you'll just let me. I'll ask the questions here. Derek cut him off sharply. Now where's your registration? Samuel nodded toward the glove compartment. It's in there along with my insurance papers. Derek stepped back from the car. Get it slowly. As Samuel reached for the glove compartment, Derek continued talking. You know, Samuel, I've been a police officer for 12 years. In that time, I've learned to spot trouble from a mile away, and right now you look like trouble to me. Samuel's hand paused as he was reaching for the papers. Officer, I've never been in trouble with the law. I'm just an old man trying to get to an appointment. Sure you are, Derek said with sarcasm dripping from his voice. And I'm the President of the United States. Come on, Samuel. You think I was born yesterday? Old men like you don't have appointments in neighborhoods like this, unless you're here to rob someone. The accusation hit Samuel like a slap in the face. Derek could see the hurt in the old man's eyes, but he did not care. In fact, he enjoyed it. For too long, people like Samuel had been getting away with things. It was time someone put them in their place. Samuel found his registration and held it out to Derek. Here it is, officer. And I want you to know that I have never stolen anything in my life. Derek took the registration and looked at it briefly. Everything seemed to be in order, but that did not mean anything. Criminals were good at keeping their paperwork up to date. It helped them avoid suspicion. Tell me something, Samuel, Derek said, holding the papers but not giving them back. What kind of work do you do? Or are you one of those people who lives off the government? Samuel's face showed more hurt, but he answered politely. I'm retired, officer. I worked for many years before I retired. Doing what? Derek pressed. Cleaning offices? Washing dishes? Let me guess. You never had a real job in your life. The insults were getting worse, and Derek could see that they were affecting Samuel. But the old man still did not get angry or fight back. Instead, he just sat there and took it. This made Derek even more frustrated. He wanted Samuel to lose his temper so he would have an excuse to arrest him. Officer, Samuel said quietly, I don't understand why you're treating me this way. I haven't done anything wrong. Haven't done anything wrong? Derek repeated. You're driving through a neighborhood where you don't belong, looking at houses like you're planning something. We've had break-ins here, Samuel. And now here you are driving around slowly, checking out all the nice homes. I told you I was looking for an address. I have it written down if you want to see it. Derek rolled his eyes. Oh, I'm sure you do. You probably wrote it down after you picked out which house you wanted to rob. Samuel reached slowly for his shirt pocket. The address is right here. I can show you. Keep your hands where I can see them, Derek shouted suddenly. Even though Samuel was moving very slowly and obviously not reaching for a weapon. You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know what you're doing? Several people in the nearby houses had come out to see what was happening. Derek could see them standing on their porches and looking out their windows. Good, he thought. Let them see how the police handle suspicious characters in their neighborhood. Officer, please, Samuel said, his voice getting quieter. I'm just trying to show you the address. I'm not reaching for anything dangerous. Derek looked at the growing crowd of people watching them. He wanted to make sure they all understood what was happening here. You know what, Samuel? I think you're lying to me. I think you came here to steal from these good people. And I don't like liars. I'm not lying, Samuel said, and Derek could hear real sadness in his voice now. I'm telling you the truth. The truth? Derek laughed loudly. The truth is that people like you don't belong in neighborhoods like this. The truth is that you're probably here to cause trouble, just like all the others. Samuel looked down at his hands, which were still shaking slightly. Officer, I've lived in this city for over 50 years. I've never caused trouble for anyone. 50 years of what? 50 years of taking handouts and causing problems for hard-working people? Derek's voice was getting louder and more aggressive. You think just because you're old you can do whatever you want? I don't want any trouble, Samuel said softly. I just want to get to my appointment. Derek bent down so his face was closer to Samuel's window. What I think, Samuel, is that you're a liar. I think you're here to rob someone and you got caught. So now you're making up stories about appointments. The crowd of people watching was getting larger. Derek could see some of them talking to each other and pointing at his police car. He hoped they were impressed with how he was handling this situation. It was important for people to see that the police were protecting their neighborhood from criminals. Please, officer, Samuel said, looking up at Derek with tired eyes. Can't you just check the address I have? It will prove that I'm telling the truth. Derek straightened up and put his hands on his hips. I don't need to check anything, Samuel. What I need is for you to tell me the real reason you're here, and I want the truth this time. Samuel closed his eyes for a moment as if he was trying to find strength. When he opened them again, Derek could see that the old man was close to tears. The truth is that I'm 78 years old, and I just want to get to my appointment without any trouble, Samuel said. I've worked hard my whole life, I've never hurt anyone, and I don't deserve to be treated like this. Derek felt a moment of something that might have been shame, but he pushed it away quickly. He was a police officer, and it was his job to be suspicious of people who did not belong. Samuel was clearly not telling the whole truth, and Derek was not going to let him get away with it. Derek looked at Samuel's license and registration one more time, but he was not really reading them. His mind was already made up about what kind of person Samuel was. In Derek's experience, people who looked like Samuel and drove cars like his were usually up to no good. It did not matter what the paperwork said. Get out of the car, Derek ordered suddenly. Samuel looked up with surprise. Excuse me, officer. You heard me. Get out of the car. I want to search it. Search it? Samuel's voice showed confusion and worry. But why? I haven't done anything wrong. Derek's patience was running out. I don't need to explain myself to you. When a police officer tells you to do something, you do it. Now get out of the car. Samuel moved slowly, like someone who was much older than his 78 years. Derek watched as the old man opened the door and carefully stood up. Samuel was not very tall, and he moved like his back and legs hurt him. Derek felt no sympathy for him. Put your hands on the roof of the car, Derek commanded. Officer, this really isn't necessary, Samuel said. But he did as he was told. I can explain everything if you'll just listen. I've heard enough of your explanations, Derek replied. He reached for his radio and called for backup. Unit 47 requesting assistance at Oak Street and Maple Avenue. I have a suspicious person and I'm conducting a search. The radio crackled back with a response. Copy that, Unit 47. Units 23 and 15 are on their way. Samuel heard the radio call and looked even more worried. Officer, you're calling for backup? I'm just one old man. I'm not dangerous. Derek ignored him and began searching the car. He opened the driver's door and looked under the seats. Then he opened the glove compartment and pulled out all the papers inside, throwing them onto the passenger seat without care. Samuel's insurance papers, registration, and other documents scattered everywhere. Hey, be careful with those, Samuel said. Some of those papers are important. I'll handle them however I want, Derek snapped. He continued searching, opening the center console and looking through everything inside. He found some old receipts, a small bottle of medicine, and a pair of reading glasses. Nothing suspicious, but Derek was not ready to give up. He moved to the back seat and began looking there too. Under the seat he found an old blanket and a thermos that looked like it had been used many times. In the back there was a small suitcase and some papers in a folder. Derek grabbed the folder and opened it. Inside were several official-looking documents. Derek saw letters with government seals and certificates with fancy writing. There were also some old photographs. One showed Samuel in what looked like a military uniform, much younger and standing with other soldiers. Another showed him in a suit, shaking hands with important-looking people. What's all this? Derek asked, holding up the folder. Samuel turned his head to look. Those are some of my personal papers, officer. Please be careful with them. Derek flipped through the documents quickly. He saw words like commendation and service and honor, but he did not read them carefully. As far as he was concerned, these were probably fake documents that Samuel used to trick people. Nice try, Derek said, throwing the folder back into the car. You can buy fake papers like these anywhere. You think I'm impressed by some phony certificates? Samuel's face showed deep hurt. Officer, those aren't fake. They're real. I earned every one of them. Sure you did, Derek said with sarcasm. And I'm sure you earned that fancy appointment you're going to, too. Just then, 2 more police cars arrived. Derek felt satisfied as he watched Officers Johnson and Rodriguez get out of their vehicles. Now Samuel would see that the police took suspicious activity seriously. What do we have here, Matthews? Officer Johnson asked as he walked over. Johnson was younger than Derek and had only been on the force for 3 years. Suspicious person driving slowly through the neighborhood, Derek explained. Claimed he was going to some appointment, but his story doesn't add up. I'm searching the vehicle. Officer Rodriguez looked at Samuel, who was still standing with his hands on the car roof. Rodriguez had been a police officer for 15 years, longer than Derek, and he had seen many situations like this. Has he been cooperative? Rodriguez asked. Too cooperative, if you ask me, Derek replied. People who act this calm usually have something to hide. Rodriguez walked over to Samuel. Sir, are you feeling all right? Do you need to sit down? Samuel looked grateful for the kind words. Thank you, officer. I'm a little tired, but I'm okay. I just don't understand why I'm being treated like a criminal. Derek heard this and got angry. Don't start with that act. You know exactly why you're here. Rodriguez looked at Derek with a questioning expression, but Derek ignored him. He continued searching the car, now looking in the trunk. Inside, he found some tools, a spare tire, and a small cooler with bottled water. Nothing illegal, but Derek was determined to find something. Matthews, Rodriguez said quietly. What exactly did this man do wrong? Derek stood up from searching the trunk. He was driving suspiciously through an expensive neighborhood. We've had break-ins in this area. It's obvious what he was doing. Did you see him try to break into anything? Rodriguez asked. He didn't need to. I stopped him before he could do anything. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable, but he did not say anything more. Johnson was standing near Samuel, looking unsure about what he should be doing. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk to watch what was happening. Derek could see people talking to each other, and some were holding up their phones, probably taking pictures or videos. He hoped they were getting good shots of the police doing their job. One woman in the crowd stepped forward. She was middle-aged and well-dressed, probably one of the people who lived in the expensive houses nearby. Officer, she called out to Derek, is everything all right? This seems like a lot of fuss for one elderly man. Derek looked at her with annoyance. Ma'am, please step back. This is police business. I understand that, the woman said, but I live right here and I saw this gentleman driving by. He wasn't doing anything wrong that I could see. With respect, ma'am, you don't know what to look for. I'm a trained police officer and I know suspicious behavior when I see it. The woman looked at Samuel, who was still standing quietly by his car. He looks like a nice old man to me. Are you sure this is necessary? Derek felt his anger rising again. He did not like it when civilians questioned his judgment. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time to step back. If you interfere with police business, I'll have to arrest you too. The woman's eyes went wide with shock. She stepped back into the crowd, but Derek could see her talking to the other people watching. Samuel spoke up quietly. Officer, I really do have an appointment. It's very important to me. Could you please check the address I have? Derek slammed the trunk of the car shut. I'm tired of hearing about your supposed appointment. If it's so important, then you should have been more careful about following the law. What law did I break? Samuel asked. I was driving safely and slowly. I had my license and registration. I've been polite and cooperative. Derek walked back over to Samuel and stood very close to him. The law says that suspicious people in expensive neighborhoods get questioned by police. And you, Samuel, are about as suspicious as they come. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. Matthews, maybe we should what? Derek interrupted. Let him go so he can come back later and rob someone. I don't think so. Derek continued searching, now going through Samuel's small suitcase. Inside were clean clothes, more medicine bottles, and a small prayer book. At the bottom of the suitcase was an envelope marked, Important, do not lose. Derek opened the envelope and found an official invitation printed on expensive paper. It had the seal of the city police department at the top. Derek glanced at it quickly but did not read it carefully. As far as he was concerned, it was just another fake document. More fake papers, Derek announced, waving the invitation in the air. This one has a police seal on it. You really went all out, didn't you, Samuel? Samuel turned around, ignoring Derek's order to keep his hands on the car. Please don't lose that, he said with worry in his voice. That invitation is very important to me. Important? Derek laughed. The only thing that's important is finding out what you're really doing here. The crowd was getting bigger and Derek could hear people talking among themselves. Some sounded angry, but Derek assumed they were angry at Samuel for causing trouble in their neighborhood. He did not realize that many of them were actually upset about how he was treating the old man. More people were coming out of their houses now. Derek could see them walking across their lawns and gathering on the sidewalk. Some were still in their work clothes, having just come home from their jobs. Others looked like they had been relaxing at home when they heard the commotion outside. A young man with a cell phone held it up high, clearly recording everything that was happening. Derek noticed this and felt a moment of annoyance. But then he remembered that the video would show how well he was doing his job. Let people see how the police protected their neighborhood from suspicious characters. Officer, called out an older woman from the crowd. What has this man done wrong? Derek looked up from searching Samuel's car. Ma'am, like I told the other lady, this is police business. Please stay back. But we live here, said a man in a business suit. We have a right to know if there's a dangerous person in our neighborhood. Derek liked hearing this. Finally, someone understood what was going on. That's exactly right, sir. I'm investigating suspicious activity, and I need to make sure everyone is safe. Samuel, who was still standing with his hands on his car, turned his head toward the crowd. I'm not dangerous, he said in a voice that was loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm just trying to get to an appointment. Don't listen to him, Derek said to the crowd. Criminals always claim they're innocent. They'll say anything to avoid getting caught. But not everyone in the crowd seemed convinced. A woman with gray hair stepped closer. Officer, I've been watching from my window. This gentleman was driving very carefully and slowly. He stopped at every stop sign. That doesn't seem like criminal behavior to me. Derek felt frustrated. These people did not understand police work. They could not see what he could see. Ma'am, criminals often drive carefully to avoid attention. Just because someone follows traffic laws doesn't mean they're not planning something illegal. A teenage boy in the crowd spoke up. But if he was planning to rob someone, wouldn't he try to be less obvious? I mean, he's driving in broad daylight with lots of people around. Derek glared at the boy. Son, leave police work to the police. You don't know what you're talking about. Officer Rodriguez walked over to Derek. Matthews, can I talk to you for a minute? Derek did not want to stop what he was doing, but Rodriguez was a senior officer. What is it? Rodriguez lowered his voice so the crowd could not hear. Don't you think we should ease up a little? This man hasn't actually done anything wrong, and we're drawing a lot of attention. Derek looked around at the growing crowd. There were at least 20 people watching now, and more were coming. Several had their phones out recording everything. So what? Derek said. Let them watch. They'll see that we take crime seriously in this city. But what crime? Rodriguez asked. Driving slowly isn't illegal. Being in a nice neighborhood isn't illegal. What exactly are we arresting him for? Derek felt his anger rising again. Even his fellow officers did not understand what was happening here. We're not arresting him yet. We're investigating, and if you can't see that this man is suspicious, then maybe you need to get your eyes checked. Rodriguez shook his head but walked away. Derek could see him talking quietly to Officer Johnson, but he could not hear what they were saying. Meanwhile, Samuel was still standing by his car. Derek noticed that the old man's legs seemed to be shaking now, and not just from fear. Samuel looked tired, like standing for so long was difficult for him. "Can I please sit down?" Samuel asked. "My legs aren't as strong as they used to be." Derek looked at him with no sympathy. "You can sit down when I'm finished with my investigation." A woman in the crowd heard this and got angry. "Officer, that's an elderly man." "Let him sit down." "Yeah," agreed another person. "What's wrong with you? He's old enough to be your grandfather." Derek felt the crowd turning against him, but he did not understand why. He was just doing his job. These people should be grateful that he was protecting their neighborhood. "Everyone needs to step back," Derek shouted. "You're interfering with police business." But instead of stepping back, more people moved closer. A man with a dog had joined the crowd, along with a woman pushing a baby stroller. Even some teenagers on bicycles had stopped to watch. One of the teenagers, a girl who looked about 16, spoke up boldly.
"This is wrong."
"You can't treat people like this just because of how they look," Derek pointed at her. "Young lady, you need to watch your mouth. I could arrest you for interfering with an officer." The girl's father, who was standing next to her, put his arm around her protectively. "Officer, my daughter has the right to speak her mind. And frankly, I agree with her. This seems excessive." "Excessive?" Derek could not believe what he was hearing. "I'm investigating a suspicious person in your neighborhood, and you think that's excessive? What if he was planning to break into your house?" The father looked at Samuel, who was now leaning against his car for support. "Look at him, officer. Does he really look like someone who's going to break into houses? He can barely stand up." Derek was getting more and more frustrated. These people just did not get it. They were too trusting, too naive. They could not see the danger that was right in front of them. "Age doesn't matter," Derek said loudly. "Criminals come in all shapes and sizes. Just because someone is old doesn't mean they're harmless." A man in the crowd held up his phone. "I've been recording this whole thing," he announced, "and I'm going to post it online so everyone can see how you're treating this innocent man." Derek felt a flash of worry, but he pushed it away. The video would show that he was doing his job correctly. People who watched it would understand that he was protecting the community. "Go ahead and record," Derek said. "I've got nothing to hide. I'm a police officer doing my duty." Samuel looked up at the crowd of people who were defending him. Derek could see tears starting to form in the old man's eyes. But Derek did not think these were tears of gratitude. They looked more like tears of sadness and embarrassment. "Thank you all for your kindness," Samuel said to the crowd. "But please don't get in trouble because of me. I don't want anyone else to be hurt by this situation." His words made several people in the crowd even more angry at Derek. A woman with children called out, "Officer, this man is clearly a good person. Why are you treating him like a criminal?" Derek had heard enough. "A good person? You don't know anything about him. You're all being fooled by an act." He turned back to Samuel's car and continued searching, becoming more rough and careless. He pulled out the seat cushions and threw them on the ground. He opened every compartment and container he could find, scattering Samuel's belongings everywhere. "Please be careful," Samuel said weakly. "Some of those things have sentimental value." "Sentimental value?" Derek laughed. "Like what? Your collection of fake documents?" He picked up the folder with Samuel's papers and held it up for everyone to see. "Look at this, everybody. Our friend Samuel here has a whole collection of fake certificates and awards. He probably uses these to trick people into trusting him." But when Derek opened the folder and some of the papers fell out, several people in the crowd moved closer to look. One man, who was wearing a military veteran cap, picked up one of the photographs that had fallen. "Hey," the veteran said, looking at the photo carefully. "This looks real to me. This is a military commendation ceremony. I've been to plenty of these." Derek snatched the photo away. "Anyone can get fake photos made these days." But the veteran shook his head. "No, sir. I know real military photos when I see them, and that uniform is definitely authentic. This man served in the military." Other people in the crowd started looking more closely at Samuel. They began to see him not as a suspicious character, but as an elderly veteran who was being mistreated by a police officer. Derek realized that the crowd was completely against him now, but he did not know how to change the situation. He had gone too far to back down, and his pride would not let him admit that he might be wrong. Samuel was getting weaker by the minute. Derek could see that the old man was struggling to stand, but he did not care. If Samuel was really innocent, he would not be acting so tired and nervous. Guilty people always got exhausted when they were caught. "Officer," Samuel said quietly, "I really need to get going. My appointment is very important and I'm already late." Derek rolled his eyes. "Still going on about that appointment, are you?" "What kind of appointment could you possibly have that's so important?" Samuel hesitated for a moment, like he was deciding whether to say something. Finally, he spoke. "It's at the police station." Derek stopped searching and looked at Samuel with suspicion. "The police station? What would you be doing at the police station?" "There's a ceremony today," Samuel explained. "I was invited to attend." Derek laughed out loud. "A ceremony? At the police station? For you?" He turned to the crowd. "Did you hear that, everyone? Our suspicious friend here claims he's going to a ceremony at the police station." Some people in the crowd looked confused, but others seemed interested in hearing more. The military veteran who had recognized Samuel's photo stepped closer. "What kind of ceremony?" the veteran asked Samuel directly. Samuel looked embarrassed to be the center of attention. It's an honor ceremony. They're giving awards to people who have served the community." Derek could not stop laughing. "An honor ceremony for you. That's the best story I've heard all day." He wiped tears from his eyes. "Samuel, you really think people are going to believe that the police department is giving you an award?" "It's true," Samuel said softly. "I have the invitation right there in my car." "You looked at it, but you didn't really read it." Derek remembered the fancy paper with the police seal that he had found in Samuel's suitcase. He had thrown it back into the car without reading it carefully. Now he was curious, but he did not want to admit that he might have missed something important. "Even if that paper is real," Derek said, "it doesn't mean you deserve to be there. They probably invite all kinds of people to these things. It doesn't make you special." Officer Rodriguez had been listening to this conversation, and now he looked very uncomfortable. He walked over to Derek again. "Matthews," Rodriguez said quietly, "maybe you should actually read that invitation." Derek felt annoyed. "Why, it's probably fake anyway." "But what if it's not?" Rodriguez asked. "What if this man is telling the truth?" Derek did not want to consider that possibility. He had been so sure that Samuel was a criminal. If he was wrong, it would make Derek look very bad in front of all these people. "Fine," Derek said. "I'll look at the stupid invitation. But when it turns out to be fake, I don't want to hear any more excuses." Derek walked back to Samuel's car and found the envelope with the official invitation. This time he actually read it carefully. The paper was thick and expensive, with the official seal of the city police department at the top. It was addressed to Mr. Samuel Washington and invited him to attend a community service honor ceremony at 3 p.m. that afternoon. Derek looked at his watch. It was already 3:30. If this invitation was real, Samuel was already half an hour late for his ceremony. The invitation went on to say that Samuel was being honored for a lifetime of service to the community and for establishing the Captain Michael Washington Memorial Scholarship Fund. At the bottom, it was signed by the police chief himself. Derek read the invitation twice, trying to find something that proved it was fake, but everything looked official. The paper, the seal, the signature, it all looked real. This could still be a fake, Derek said, but his voice did not sound as confident as before. The military veteran had been watching Derek read the invitation. "Officer, can I see that?" Derek did not want to show it to anyone, but several people in the crowd were asking to see it too. Reluctantly, he held it up so people could read it. The veteran looked at it carefully. "This looks completely legitimate to me. I've seen plenty of official government documents, and this has all the right elements." A woman in the crowd pointed to something on the invitation. "Look at that name, Captain Michael Washington. Is that a relative of yours?" she asked Samuel. Samuel's face changed, and Derek could see deep sadness in his eyes. "That was my son," Samuel said quietly. "He was killed in the line of duty 20 years ago." The crowd went completely silent. Even Derek felt a shock go through him. A police officer's father? That changed everything. Your son was a police officer? The military veteran asked gently. Samuel nodded. He was a captain. He loved his job and believed in helping people. He died trying to stop a robbery. Derek felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. He had been treating the father of a fallen police officer like a criminal. The father of a hero, Officer Rodriguez, stepped forward. Sir, what was your son's full name? Captain Michael Washington, Samuel replied. He worked at the downtown station for 15 years before he was promoted to captain. Rodriguez's face went pale. I knew Captain Washington. I was just a rookie when he died, but everyone talked about him. He was a good man and a great officer. Derek could not believe what he was hearing. He remembered hearing stories about Captain Washington when he first joined the force. The man was a legend, a police officer who had given his life to protect others, and Derek had been treating his father like garbage. If this is true, Derek said weakly, then why didn't you tell me who you were? Samuel looked at Derek with sad but kind eyes. Would it have mattered? Should I only be treated with respect because of who my son was? Don't all people deserve to be treated with dignity? The question hit Derek like a slap in the face. Samuel was right. Derek had been treating him badly not because of anything he had done, but because of how he looked and where he came from. A woman in the crowd was crying now. You poor man, she said to Samuel. And they're honoring you today for the scholarship fund? Samuel nodded. I started a scholarship to help young people from poor neighborhoods become police officers. I wanted to honor my son's memory by helping others serve the community the way he did. Derek felt sick to his stomach. This man had lost his son and then spent years helping other young people follow in his son's footsteps. And Derek had accused him of being a criminal. The ceremony, Derek said, his voice barely above a whisper. You're already late. Samuel looked at his old watch. Yes, I know. But it's all right. They'll understand. No, said the military veteran firmly. It's not all right. Officer, he said to Derek, you need to give this man a police escort to that ceremony right now. Several other people in the crowd agreed. Yes, he deserves to be there. This is terrible. Derek looked around at all the angry faces staring at him. He had made a huge mistake and now everyone knew it. But more than that, he had hurt a good man who had already suffered enough loss in his life. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. Matthews, I think the veteran is right. We should escort Mr. Washington to the station. Derek knew that Rodriguez was trying to help him fix the situation, but Derek also knew that it was too late. The damage was already done, and when they got to the police station, everyone there would learn what he had done. Derek stood frozen for a moment, not knowing what to do. The crowd was staring at him, waiting to see how he would handle the situation. Samuel was still leaning against his car, looking tired and sad. The invitation to the police ceremony was still in Derek's hand, feeling heavier than it should. Officer Rodriguez stepped closer to Derek. We need to make this right, he said quietly. This man deserves better than what happened here today. Derek knew Rodriguez was correct, but his pride made it hard to admit his mistake. He had spent the last hour treating Samuel like a criminal, accusing him of planning to rob houses, and mocking his claims about having an important appointment. Now it turned out that Samuel was not only innocent, but was actually being honored by the police department. Mr. Washington, Rodriguez said to Samuel, we sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding. Would you like us to escort you to the police station? Samuel looked up with tired eyes. Thank you, officer. That's very kind, but I think I've caused enough trouble for one day. You haven't caused any trouble, said the military veteran from the crowd. The only trouble here was caused by that officer. He pointed directly at Derek. Derek felt his face burning with embarrassment and anger, but he could not argue with what the man said. Everything that had happened was Derek's fault. A woman in the crowd walked up to Samuel. Sir, I'm so sorry this happened to you. My name is Margaret Chen and I live right here on this street. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Other people in the crowd started introducing themselves to Samuel and apologizing for what Derek had done. Soon Samuel was surrounded by neighbors who wanted to shake his hand and tell him how wrong the whole situation had been. This is ridiculous, Derek muttered under his breath, but Officer Johnson heard him. What's ridiculous? Johnson asked. That people are being nice to a man who was treated badly? Derek did not answer. He was busy trying to figure out how to get out of this situation without looking even worse than he already did. Meanwhile, people in the crowd were still recording everything with their phones. Derek realized that videos of this incident would probably be all over social media within hours. Everyone would see how he had treated Samuel, and everyone would know what kind of police officer he was. Samuel was gathering his belongings that Derek had scattered around during the search. His hands were shaking more now, and it was clear that the whole experience had exhausted him. The military veteran and several other people from the crowd helped him pick up his papers and put them back in order. "Mr. Washington," Rodriguez said, "please let us drive you to the station. It's the least we can do." Samuel thought about it for a moment. "I appreciate the offer, but I can drive myself. I've been driving for 60 years and I'm not ready to stop now." "But you're already late for the ceremony," pointed out Margaret Chen. "With a police escort, you could get there faster." Samuel smiled for the first time since Derek had pulled him over. "You know what? You're right. I worked hard to establish that scholarship fund, and I do want to be there for the ceremony." Derek knew he should offer to provide the escort himself, as a way of making up for his mistakes. But he could not bring himself to do it. He was too embarrassed and too worried about what would happen when they got to the police station. Rodriguez seemed to understand Derek's hesitation. "Johnson and I will escort Mr. Washington," he said. "Matthews, you can finish up here and write your report." Derek felt relief that he would not have to face the people at the police station right away. But he also felt like a coward for letting other officers clean up his mess. Samuel slowly got back into his old car. The crowd watched as he started the engine and rolled down his window. "Thank you all for your kindness," Samuel said to the people gathered around. "It means more to me than you know. Today has been difficult, but meeting all of you has shown me that there are still good people in the world." His words made several people in the crowd start crying. They could see that despite everything Derek had put him through, Samuel was not angry or bitter. He was still able to see the good in people. As Samuel drove away with the police escort, the crowd began to break up. But many people stayed to talk about what they had witnessed. Derek could hear them discussing how wrong the whole situation had been. "That poor man," one woman said. "He lost his son and then he gets treated like that by a police officer." "It's disgusting," agreed another person. "Someone should file a complaint." "I already am," said the man who had been recording everything. "I'm sending this video to the police department and to the local news stations. People need to see what happened here." Derek felt panic rising in his chest. If this story got to the news, his career would be over. Everyone would know about his mistake. His supervisors would have no choice but to discipline him, maybe even fire him. He walked back to his police car, trying to ignore the people who were still talking about the incident. As he got in and started the engine, he could see some of them pointing at him and shaking their heads. Derek drove back toward the police station slowly, dreading what was waiting for him there. He knew that by now Rodriguez and Johnson would have told everyone about what happened. The story would spread quickly through the department. As he drove, Derek tried to think of ways to explain his actions. Maybe he could say that Samuel had been acting suspiciously. Maybe he could claim that he was just being careful because of the recent break-ins in the area. But deep down, Derek knew that none of those excuses would work. The truth was that he had treated Samuel badly because of his age, his race, and his old car. He had made assumptions based on prejudice, not on facts. When Derek arrived at the police station, he could see Rodriguez's car parked in front. Samuel's old sedan was there too, looking out of place among all the police vehicles. Derek parked and sat in his car for a few minutes, trying to work up the courage to go inside. Through the windows of the station, he could see people in dress uniforms moving around. The ceremony was obviously already in progress. Derek realized that Samuel had made it just in time, despite everything Derek had done to delay him. Finally, Derek forced himself to get out of his car and walk toward the station entrance. He had no choice but to face the consequences of his actions. As he reached for the door handle, he could hear the sound of applause coming from inside the building. The ceremony was happening right now, and Samuel was probably receiving his award at this very moment. Derek wondered what people would think when they found out that the guest of honor had been stopped and searched by a police officer just an hour earlier. Derek took a deep breath and opened the door, not knowing what was waiting for him inside. Derek walked into the police station and immediately felt the weight of dozens of eyes on him. The main room had been decorated for the ceremony, with flags and banners hanging from the walls. Rows of chairs were filled with police officers, city officials, and community members. At the front of the room was a small stage with a podium. Derek tried to slip in quietly and find a seat in the back, but Officer Rodriguez saw him and waved him over. Derek's heart was pounding as he made his way through the crowd. Everyone seemed to be looking at him, and he wondered how many people already knew what had happened. "Matthews," Rodriguez whispered as Derek sat down next to him. "You need to see this." On the stage, Police Chief Barbara Martinez was speaking into a microphone. She was a stern woman who had been running the department for 10 years. Derek had always respected her, but he was terrified of what she might know about today's incident. "Today we are honoring a man who has given so much to our community," Chief Martinez was saying. "His story is one of service, sacrifice, and incredible strength in the face of loss." Derek looked around the room and saw Samuel sitting in the front row. The old man was wearing the same clothes he had been wearing when Derek stopped him, but someone had helped him clean up and comb his hair. He looked dignified and proud, very different from the tired, frightened man Derek had seen an hour ago. "Mr. Samuel Washington," the chief continued, "lost his son 20 years ago. Captain Michael Washington was one of the finest officers this department has ever seen. He died protecting innocent people during a bank robbery, and his sacrifice will never be forgotten." Derek felt his stomach drop. He had heard the story of Captain Washington many times, but he had never connected it to the old man he had stopped today. Captain Washington was a hero, known throughout the department for his bravery and dedication. Chief Martinez continued speaking. After losing his son, Mr. Washington could have become bitter. He could have blamed the police department or turned away from law enforcement altogether. Instead, he chose to honor his son's memory by helping others. Derek watched Samuel's face as the chief spoke. The old man was listening with quiet dignity, occasionally nodding or wiping his eyes. Derek could see the pain that Samuel still carried, even after 20 years. The Captain Michael Washington Memorial Scholarship Fund has helped over 100 young people attend college and join law enforcement, Chief Martinez announced. Mr. Washington has personally interviewed every scholarship recipient, and many of them are now serving as police officers in departments across the country. The audience began to applaud, and Derek felt tears forming in his eyes. He had treated this incredible man like a criminal. Samuel had lost his son, and then spent the next 20 years helping other young people follow in his son's footsteps. And Derek had accused him of planning to rob houses. A young police officer walked onto the stage. Derek recognized him as Officer Kevin Chen, who worked at the downtown station. Chen took the microphone and began to speak. "I am one of the recipients of the Captain Washington Scholarship," Chen said. 5 years ago, I was just a kid from a poor neighborhood with a dream of becoming a police officer. I didn't have the money for college, and I thought my dream was impossible." Chen looked directly at Samuel as he spoke. "Mr. Washington didn't just give me money for school. He became my mentor. He taught me what it means to serve the community with honor and integrity. He showed me that being a police officer means protecting everyone, no matter who they are or where they come from." Derek felt like he was going to be sick. Everything Officer Chen was saying made Derek's actions seem even worse. Samuel had spent years teaching young officers how to treat people with respect, and Derek had done the exact opposite. Chief Martinez returned to the podium. "Mr. Washington has also been instrumental in building bridges between the police department and the African American community. He has worked tirelessly to improve relations and increase trust." Derek thought about how he had treated Samuel, and he realized he had done more damage in 1 hour than Samuel could repair in months of community work. "But perhaps most importantly," the chief continued, "Mr. Washington has shown us all what forgiveness looks like. Despite his personal loss, despite facing discrimination and hardship throughout his life, he has never given up on the belief that people can change and do better." The chief paused and looked out at the audience. "In fact, I understand that Mr. Washington faced some challenges just today on his way to this ceremony. There was an incident with a traffic stop that could have prevented him from being here." Derek's blood ran cold. Chief Martinez knew what had happened. His career was over. But true to his character, the chief continued, "Mr. Washington chose not to let that incident define his day. He is here with us now, ready to accept this honor with the same grace and dignity he has shown throughout his life." Derek could not believe what he was hearing. Samuel had not reported the incident. He had not complained or demanded that Derek be punished. Instead, he had simply come to the ceremony and focused on the positive. Chief Martinez called Samuel to the stage. The old man stood up slowly and walked to the podium with careful steps. When he reached the microphone, the entire room stood and applauded. Derek stood too, but his legs felt weak. Samuel looked out at the audience with tears in his eyes. "Thank you all for this incredible honor," he said in a voice that was stronger than Derek had heard all day. 20 years ago, I lost my son. It was the worst day of my life. But standing here today, surrounded by so many good people, I am reminded that Michael's legacy lives on. Samuel paused and wiped his eyes. My son believed that police officers have a sacred duty to protect and serve everyone in the community. He believed that every person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. That belief cost him his life, but it also made him a hero. Derek felt tears streaming down his face. He thought about how he had denied Samuel that basic dignity and respect just hours earlier. Established the scholarship fund because I wanted to help young people who share Michael's values. Samuel continued. I wanted to help create more police officers who understand that our job is to serve all people, regardless of their race, their age, or their economic status. Samuel looked directly at the section where Derek was sitting. Derek was sure that Samuel could see him, could see the guilt and shame on his face. Today on my way here, I was reminded that we still have work to do, Samuel said quietly. But I was also reminded that there are good people everywhere, people who are willing to stand up for what is right. Change is possible and hope is never lost. Derek realized that Samuel was talking about the people in the crowd who had defended him. Even after being treated badly by Derek, Samuel was choosing to focus on the kindness of the neighbors who had spoken up for him. Chief Martinez returned to the podium and presented Samuel with a beautiful plaque. The room erupted in applause again, and Derek found himself clapping harder than anyone else, even though he knew he did not deserve to be celebrating Samuel's achievement. As the ceremony continued, Derek sat in his chair feeling smaller and smaller. He had learned more about courage, dignity, and forgiveness in the last hour than he had learned in his entire 12-year career. And he had learned it from a man he had treated like garbage. When the ceremony ended, people began moving around the room, talking and congratulating Samuel. Derek wanted to disappear, but he knew he had to face what he had done. He had to find a way to apologize, even though he knew that no apology could undo the damage he had caused. Derek sat in his chair as people moved around the room, congratulating Samuel and taking pictures with him. Derek felt frozen, unable to move or speak. Everything he had believed about himself as a police officer had been shattered in the last 2 hours. He watched as young officers approached Samuel, many of them scholarship recipients who wanted to thank their mentor. Derek saw the respect and love in their eyes as they talked to the old man. These officers understood what Derek had failed to see, that Samuel Washington was a hero who deserved honor, not suspicion. Chief Martinez was making her way through the crowd, shaking hands and talking to people. Derek knew it was only a matter of time before she reached him. He considered leaving, but he knew that would only make things worse. Finally, Chief Martinez appeared in front of Derek's chair. "Officer Matthews," she said in a voice that was calm but serious. "I think we need to talk." Derek stood up on shaky legs. "Yes, ma'am. My office," the chief said. "Now." Derek followed Chief Martinez through the crowd, trying not to look at anyone. He could feel people watching him, and he wondered how many of them knew what he had done. In her office, Chief Martinez closed the door and sat behind her desk. Derek remained standing, not sure if he was allowed to sit down. "I received some interesting phone calls this afternoon," the chief began. "It seems there was an incident involving you and Mr. Washington before the ceremony." Derek felt his mouth go dry. "Yes, ma'am. There was. Would you like to explain what happened?" Derek tried to find the right words, but everything he thought of sounded terrible. "I stopped Mr. Washington for suspicious activity. I thought he might be. I thought he was." "You thought he was what, Matthews?" Derek could not bring himself to say the words. "I was wrong," he said quietly. Chief Martinez leaned forward. "I have video footage of the entire incident, Matthews. Multiple people recorded it and sent it to us. I've seen exactly what you did and heard exactly what you said." Derek felt like the floor was falling out from under him. "Chief, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you treated a decorated military veteran and the father of a fallen officer like a criminal." How you mocked him and searched his car without cause. How you ignored his attempts to show you his invitation to this ceremony. Each question hit Derek like a physical blow. He had no defense for any of it. Chief Martinez, Derek said, his voice breaking, I made a terrible mistake. I let my assumptions and prejudices cloud my judgment. There's no excuse for how I treated Mr. Washington. The chief studied Derek's face for a long moment. At least you're being honest now. But honesty doesn't undo the damage you've caused. Derek nodded, tears streaming down his face. I know I hurt him and I'm sorry. You're sorry? Chief Martinez stood up, her voice rising. Matthews, do you understand what you've done? You humiliated a man who has given everything to this community. You treated him like garbage because of how he looked and where he came from. You violated every principle that this department stands for. Derek could only nod and cry. He knew she was right about everything. And do you know what the worst part is? The chief continued. Mr. Washington didn't even file a complaint. He could have demanded your badge and he would have been justified. Instead, he came to this ceremony and focused on celebrating the positive. That's the kind of man he is. Derek felt even worse knowing that Samuel had protected him even after being treated so badly. There was a knock on the office door. Chief Martinez called out, Come in. The door opened and Samuel Washington walked into the office. Derek felt his knees go weak. He was going to have to face Samuel directly. Mr. Washington, Chief Martinez said, standing up. Thank you for coming. Samuel looked at Derek with sad but kind eyes. Chief Martinez, I hope you don't mind, but I asked to speak with Officer Matthews. Derek could not believe that Samuel wanted to talk to him. After everything that had happened, why would he want to have anything to do with Derek? Of course, the chief said. I'll give you some privacy. She looked at Derek sternly. We'll finish our conversation later, Matthews. Chief Martinez left the office, closing the door behind her. Derek and Samuel were alone. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Derek was crying too hard to form words, and Samuel seemed to be choosing his words carefully. Finally, Samuel spoke. Officer Matthews, I want you to know that I don't hate you. Derek looked up in shock. How can you not hate me? I treated you terribly. I humiliated you in front of all those people. Samuel sat down in one of the chairs in front of the chief's desk. Son, I've lived for 78 years. I've seen hatred and I've seen love. I've experienced prejudice and I've experienced kindness. Today, you showed me prejudice. But those people in the crowd showed me kindness. Derek sat down too, still crying. Mr. Washington, I'm so sorry. I judged you based on ignorance and prejudice. I treated you like a criminal when you're actually a hero. Samuel smiled sadly. I'm not a hero. I'm just a father who misses his son and tries to honor his memory. But you are a hero, Derek insisted. You lost your son, and instead of becoming bitter, you've spent 20 years helping other young people. You've made the world better. Samuel was quiet for a moment. You know, Officer Matthews, my son Michael faced the same kinds of prejudices that I face today. People sometimes treated him badly because of his race, but he never let that change who he was. He always believed that people could be better. Derek wiped his eyes. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, Samuel said gently, but I'm giving it to you anyway. Do you know why? Derek shook his head. Because that's what my son would have done, Samuel explained. Michael believed that everyone deserves a second chance. He believed that people can change and grow. Derek felt overwhelmed by Samuel's kindness. I don't know how to make this right. Samuel leaned forward. You make it right by learning from this. You make it right by treating every person you meet with dignity and respect, regardless of how they look or where they come from. You make it right by becoming the kind of police officer my son was. Derek nodded, understanding that Samuel was giving him a gift he did not deserve, the chance to be better. Will you help me? Derek asked. Will you help me learn to be better? Samuel smiled, and for the first time all day it was a real smile. Son, I've been helping young police officers for 20 years. I'd be honored to help one more. Derek felt something change inside him. The prejudice and assumptions that had guided his actions for so long began to crumble, replaced by a new understanding of what it meant to serve and protect. Mr. Washington, Derek said, I promise you that I will spend the rest of my career making up for what I did today. I will honor your son's memory by being the kind of officer he was. Samuel reached out and shook Derek's hand. That's all I can ask for, son. That's all anyone can ask for. As they sat together in the chief's office, Derek realized that this was the most important moment of his career, not because he was being punished, but because he was being given the chance to change. Samuel Washington, the man he had wronged so deeply, was offering him forgiveness and guidance. Derek knew that he would face consequences for his actions. His career might be over, or at least seriously damaged. But more importantly, he had learned what it meant to be truly human. He had learned about dignity, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. When Chief Martinez returned to the office, she found Derek and Samuel talking quietly about the scholarship program and how Derek might be able to help with community outreach. She saw a young officer who had been broken down and was now ready to be built back up. Guided by a man who understood that the best way to fight hatred was with love. It would be a long road for Derek. He would have to prove that his change was real, not just words. But for the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to serve all people with honor and respect, and he had Samuel Washington to thank for that lesson.